Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast. I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Paul Ward of Rendezvous in Chambéry. Paul, it's awesome to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Super excited to have you on, Paul. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Paul so you can hear about all the awesome things that he's doing. And Paul is a pharmaceutical and biotech patent attorney who lives in California. And as a medical and graduate student, his research was focused primarily on diabetes and its complications. After graduating from Loyola University in Chicago and George Washington University law schools, respectively, he worked in the area of pharmaceutical patents and antitrust litigation in Silicon Valley, California, and the heterocyclic compounds and pharmaceutical patent prosecution in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. He's an avid fan of literature, tennis, NFL, and collegiate basketball. And his main interest, apart from reading and sports, is traveling the world to experience different cultures. Paul, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Well, let's do it then. I know I tripped over all those words, so I wanted to hear a little
Actually,
bit
you
more.
pronounced them very well. I was very
Thank you.
impressed with you.
I appreciate that.
I have people in my own field who can't even pronounce, chemists who can't even pronounce it. But yeah,
I can definitely understand why. There's definitely some compound words to say the least. But I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit, hear a little bit more on how you got started with all the awesome work that you're doing. Could you take us through what I call your CEO story? We'll let you get started.
well, I always wanted to write, and first of all, as a young kid, I was an avid reader, and I can recall as a young boy, I have four older brothers, and often they would come in the house and put the book down, go outside and play. Because once I started learning how to read, it was like a puzzle, and
Mhm.
I just became fascinated with it. And then from reading came writing, but I was also fascinated and excelled in math and science. So that was what propelled me to attend medical school. And I remember as a pre-med and a med student, my mother used to always tell me when I would write home to her, son, you missed your calling. You should be a writer. You should be a writer. So I always had this ideal, this to write this story. And it took me over 2 decades to finish it, but it was something I wanted to do, and I finally did it. And it's just great to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, that's awesome. As an English major and somebody who loved to write and read as well too, I definitely appreciate the written language and how you're able to kind of bring things to fruition. And I love that you mentioned your mom and how sometimes the people that are closest to us can see like what we should be doing, our calling, our gifts, and sometimes they have to bring it to light so that we know that this is the way that we should be going.
Yes, that's so true.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to hear a little bit more about, the book and all the awesome work that you're doing. Could you take us through a little bit more about that?
Oh, well, of course, my career as a patent attorney, it keeps me very, very busy. So it was a struggle balancing my career with writing because, as everyone knows, the pharmaceutical industry, they have a lot of money. And I'm the one who prosecute the pharmaceutical patents. So, for example, if a pharmaceutical company, let's say Johnson and Johnson, comes up with a new drug to treat, let's say, diabetes, for example, they want to be the first one to have a patent on it, and that allows them a monopoly for 20 years. So that drug, they can set the price and all of that surrounding it for 20 years. And then after 20 years, it becomes a generic. So there's always competition to get that patent, that invention of the pharmaceutical, being the pharmaceutical compound patented. And so they're filing lots of applications because it's just not Johnson and Johnson. There's Pfizer, there's Moderna, as you heard, the vaccine. Everyone's now on that the vaccine patent chase because they want the monopoly on it, and they can charge whatever they want for it. So the pharmaceutical company or industry keeps me very busy because they want their patent, and then they should have it because they invest a lot of money for these drugs. And then, because I'm busy with my career plus my family, then comes trying to balancing writing with both. And it's a struggle, but it's it's something that I welcome. It's not like something I run from.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I feel like I read this quote where somebody says, how do you write a book? And and then somebody said like one word at a time, and that's how you do it. And so many times when you're juggling a lot, it's just as simple as, being able to kind of continually progress towards that goal of writing that book. So I appreciate you being able to do that and balance that with, everything that you're helping these pharmaceutical companies out with. So I want to hear more about the book. Can you take us through that and what exactly it's about?
Well, the book is about it's a journey, it's an adventure, it's a medical, um, it's it's a medical mystery. The scientists came upon something, and the historical fact there. I mean, the factual surrounding the. It's about a virus and how the virus was discovered. That's all true. And what I've did is taken these characters and I weave the story in and out of surrounding this discovery. And it's called Rendezvous in Chambéry for a reason. Rendezvous is as you know, as a English major, is a double entendre. So it, it it generally it means a place or a meeting or a place for meeting, but the other part of it being a double entendre is also can be something risque or salacious. So you have all of these individuals heading to Chambéry in France, starting from the Midwest and Missouri and Chicago, and you have 9 people on this plane, and you're wondering why is everyone heading to Chambéry? Is it because of the discovery? Yeah, well, maybe for some, yes. But you also have these characters, and they all have their own divergent background. For example, one's a farm boy from Iowa. He's heading there. There's a beautiful woman, uh, Caressa, who's looking for reckless love or hungry for reckless love. You have this intelligent, unconventional person. She's heading there. Then there's another character, Tracy. She's going there, but what's Tracy's background? Well, she's a lioness in adversity, overcoming, stereotype of a young Black woman. And then you have this very wealthy heiress who's heiress to a family fortune, and she's heading there. And so you want to know what's the connection? Is it related to the discovery, or could each of them be running from their hidden haunted past? So the book gets you tells a story to get you through to it and figure and lets you know why they were in Chambéry. And it's just a fascinating story because you have all of these people with their fascinating backgrounds.
Yeah, I love that. And I appreciate you for breaking that down because I think so many times when we hear, and I think that's why, it always goes back to stories and being able to connect with people and kind of be captivated by the journey that they have and seeing how it ends up, seeing why, as you said, so well, they're all going to Chambéry and what exactly, they'll get, as a result of that progress, of that process is absolutely huge. And so I was going to ask you for what I call your secret sauce. And this could be for you personally or in the book or a combo of both. But what do you feel kind of sets you apart and makes it unique?
What do I feel as a
It sets you apart and makes it unique, the book or yourself
the,
personally.
the sexual part?
No, what do you think sets it apart and makes it unique? Yourself
Oh,
or
what sets it apart? I
Mhm.
think because first of all, the main character, he's a protagonist, and it's amazing wherever he goes, dead body follows. And you're like, why are all the dead bodies following this protagonist? So the other fascinating thing which sets it apart is as you're reading through and as each character comes out and as each character is introduced, you're finding you're heading on a journey. You're learning things about history, you're learning things about places, you're learning things about different cultures, how they speak, what they eat, great food. It's amazing. I have so many people said, "Damn, when I read this book, it made me hungry and it made me want to go out and to a restaurant to try these different types of food because I've heard about stuff like that, but I really never paid much attention to it." So it takes you on a journey as well as making you feel like you were actually there.
yeah, and do
At the
you
same time, it's also educational.
Mhm.
There are a lot of topics we talk about. We talk about date rape because it starts in the early 1990s, and that was big on college campuses. It talks about domestic violence. Remember, back in the early 90s, you had the big O.J. Simpson trial, and domestic violence came to light, and it discusses domestic violence. It also discusses there's a gay couple in there, and it discusses how coming out of the gay person coming out to their parent, but not only him coming out to the parent, it also discusses what the parent goes through because a lot of people think, yeah, it's hard for a gay person to come out to his parents, but it's also difficult on the parents. So I wanted to reach out and to show both sides of that as well. And it's just a journey and it discusses several issues. And of course, there's a virus, and we're living in a pandemic at this time. It wasn't planned to come out because I started the book over 20 years ago. It just so happened that the pandemic happened. And then there's also, it dismisses stereotypes.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you for breaking that down. And I almost feel like it's kind of reflective of what you talked about with the different experiences and different cultures that you get to see all those different aspects play out through that journey that you mentioned. And I think, again, it's one of those things that I think not only, in your book, we can definitely learn from, but we can also see within each other how we're different and unique and how we have different
Exactly.
experiences and stories and how we should appreciate that as well.
Hmm.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit and I wanted
Okay.
to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
Um, wow. I have to say, I know it sounds corny, reading. I'm always trying to educate myself on something. If I meet someone and they're telling me they're from such and such a place, I'll go and Google it and look it up and see, oh, okay, I never met anyone from Morovia before. And what's it like being there? And I'll find out what it is, what do they eat, what is their culture like, what language do they speak, how did it come to be known as Morovia. But mainly, my main thing is you it's true, you can learn something every day, or you learn something new every day. And I try to learn it, if it even if it's just a word. If I see a word and I don't come across it, I try to learn what it is and try to use it in a sentence, and just to keep my mind going. So um I think the main thing is education. It's just, it doesn't have to be like a scientific formula. It should just be something simple, a word.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I feel like that insatiable curiosity is where a lot of that creativity, comes from. I myself just learned how to say Chambéry today because I was saying it completely wrong before we hopped on. And I think it's important to be able to kind of lean into those things because I think that's where creativity, that's where opportunities and a lot of things come from if you're able to continue to learn and sharpen that saw, so to speak. And I want to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So there could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something if you were to hop into a time machine, you would tell your younger business self.
That's a really, really good question. For me, the struggle for me was once I got this book written, um, if you ever sit down and you write a book, it's an accomplishment. But I had this 350, 400 page book, and I was like, wow, what do I do with it now? And I start sending it out to my manuscript out to publisher, and I kept getting rejection after rejection after rejection. And I was like, wow, okay, I have this book. I'm getting rejection after rejection. I'm getting like frustrated, depressed, and I did all this work and nothing. No one will get to see it. And I was just ready to give up. And I just happened to have a friend who just happened to call. She's a poet. And she said, "Oh, what are you doing?" Oh, another rejection letter. I don't want to go to brunch or do anything. She said, "I'm coming to pick you up." And she's convinced me. She was like, "You don't understand how the system works. There's a person is just in a room. They pick it up and they're bored, they're sleeping. They just push step and rejection. Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't give up. Keep trying." And I would say to the advice that I would have to anyone is if you really have a passion, if you really have a dream, don't give up because you haven't failed unless you give up. So never give up, never give up. No matter if it's your dream, no matter how many people tell you no, or how many doors are slammed in your face, you know, keep knocking on that door.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate that nugget. And so many times we don't realize that, the rejections are not failures. They only become failures if you stop. So continuing to move forward. And I love that, in addition, you have we don't realize the environment that we create around us. And sometimes we have those friends and those people that are able to pick us up and to remind us of those things that sometimes we know. It's so important to kind of keep that environment around you because that's also what leads you to be successful. Awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I wanted to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So, Paul, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Whew, that's a really, really, really good question. What it means to me, well, you know, I had a story to tell and I told it, and I wasn't writing a book to sell millions and millions and millions of copy. I wanted to share a story and have people to read it and say it. So for me, it's just being proud of my work, giving everything that I could, And if it didn't work out, it didn't work out. But at least, I gave it 110% and I tried my best.
I absolutely love that, and I think so many times we think the fear that we have is really like the worst pain you can have, or the rejection or things not going the way that we want them to go. But I almost feel like the worst pain is not trying. And I think that, as you said, those are the things that we can control. We can control the effort that we put in. We can control kind of going forward. We can't always control the outcome, but we can continue to kind of go forward. And I think if we tap into that, we understand these are our gifts and these are the things that we do, and this is as best I can make them come to fruition as possible and set forth
Mhm.
on that. Then I think
Yes,
that is something that we really all need to tap into.
yes.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, Paul, truly appreciate that definition. I appreciate your time even more. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you can let our readers and listeners know, and of course, how best they can get hold of you, get a copy of the book, and find out about all the awesome things that you're working on.
The best way I would say is go to www.rendezvous.com, or you can Google me at paulvward.com. It explains, there's a synopsis of the book, and it also tells you a little bit more about me. So I would definitely refer you there. And if you have questions or anything about the book, you can also email me from that website.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. We will have the links and information in the show notes too, just so that everybody can get a copy of the book and get a hold of get in touch with you. So
Mhm.
I truly appreciate that, Paul. Appreciate your time again, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.
All right. And thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure.